Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining Live with Thrive. This is a podcast dedicated to empowering Black and Brown women to thrive in womanhood, motherhood, and career. I am your host, Dr. Allison Harris Welcher, the creator of Thrive Life Coaching, here to celebrate the remarkable journeys and hurdles and victories of women who navigate the intricate complexities landscape of womanhood, motherhood, and career. I'm so excited to have you here tonight for this evening's episode. During each episode, we do try to have candid conversations with inspiring guests who generously share their personal narratives, insights, and strategies for triumph. This goes from juggling family duties to pursuing professional aspirations. And these women impart priceless wisdom and motivation to listeners striving to thrive in every facet of their life. So, whether you're balancing the demands of motherhood, excelling in your career, or seeking empowerment in womanhood, this podcast is your go to resource for inspiration, guidance, and support. So, I applaud you for joining us this evening. And I want to officially welcome you to our ninth episode of Live with Thrive. We're so happy you're here. As we get settled into the evening, as we always do, we want to hear where you all are coming from. And so please take a moment to drop into the chat box and comment what city and state are you dialing in from. I am so excited to see my best friend ever, Aisha, coming in from Winston-Salem. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Tonight's episode is a very, very special one. I have my very own mother with me this evening. And so she is going to impart some wonderful wisdom and likely share some good stories that will give all of us some wisdom. And so without further ado, I want to welcome my mother, Mary Harris, to the stage. Hi, Mama.
Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
I'm doing well. How are you this evening?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Very good. Well, I'm so glad that you could be on the show with me this evening. I think since I first started doing the show, you made it known that you wanted to be a guest. And so tonight we are doing this really in honor of Mother's Day, similar to how we like to celebrate birthdays all week, all month long. We're going to celebrate mothers all week, all month long. So this is a very special Mother's Day edition of Live with Thrive. And so tonight's episode is entitled Generations of Resilience, a mother-daughter conversation thriving in womanhood, motherhood, and career. And so in this conversation with my mom, we're going to talk about the challenges and triumphs faced by women across different generations and exploring how societal expectations and cultural norms have evolved over time, impacting women's experiences in the workplace and at home and even in marriages. And so seeing a lot of folks chime in. My cousin Monica is here. Hi, Monica. So glad you could join us. And so want to invite you, in light of this conversation, if you know a woman in your life, a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, a daughter, sister, a cousin of a different generation, I highly recommend that you tag her now so that she can join this important conversation. I think too often we don't really have real conversations around how things are different, just as we navigate womanhood. And so tonight we want to hopefully have a real conversation about that. And so just to anchor us in some data and some facts, want to just share some things as I normally do. And so want to start off just with naming, my mother was born in the 50s, right, Mom? You're born around the
Correct.
1950s?
56.
Born in the 1950s. So she got married in the 70s, and she'll share a little bit more about that. But in the 1970s, the median age for marriage for women in the United States was around 21 years old, which is significantly lower than today's average age of about 28 years old. Now, that's the average age for now, but I'm on that other end because I did not even get married until my mid 30s. right? So you can already see some differences in experiences already. And so, similarly, the average age of first time mothers was considerably lower as well, with women in the 1970s typically giving birth in their early 20s compared to the current trend of women delaying motherhood until their 30s. I myself had my second child. As I approached the age of 40. So again, life just very different in these different generations. Just want to add some layers to that outside of womanhood and motherhood, this idea of career. And so during the 1970s, women faced significant barriers to entry and advancement in the workforce. However, according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 1972, approximately 43% of Black women participated in the labor force. Now, I do want to highlight that percentage was actually pretty much higher than white women. And so Black women were in the workforce at a higher rate, generally than other women of ethnicities. And this trend really reflected the economic necessity for many Black women to work outside of the home due to factors such as lower household incomes and limited access to other sources of financial support. And so, as we know over the decades, there has been a gradual shift of societal attitudes toward gender roles and family dynamics. And so, we don't always see these traditional gender roles take place. And so, today, I think there certainly is a greater acceptance of diverse family structures. There's an increased representation of women in leadership positions and a growing emphasis of work-life balance and gender equality in the workplace. And so these changes do reflect some broader cultural evolution towards greater inclusivity and empowerment, but it doesn't remove the fact that there are still things that we still have to navigate through as women, particularly Black women, having our mothers experience something very different than what we're experiencing. So tonight, my mama and I are going to discuss these shared experiences and some lessons learned. And so first, we want to get to know my mom a little bit more. So Mom, I have a few questions for you, and they are in honor of Mother's Day. And so want to first ask you, before I ask you this question, I want to give people some reference. The picture that you see on most of the advertisements for this episode is actually a picture of myself when I was a baby, my mother holding me, and my grandmother, my mother's mother, Rachel Hyde. And so my question for you is, what is your favorite memory with your mother, with Grandma Rachel?
Okay, over the years, there were quite a few good memories, but I guess toward the end, 2 years, I think in 1996, when mom was diagnosed with cancer.
Mhm.
So she was a person that loved holidays. She was a person that loved to cook, loved to bake. So my favorite memory was during Christmas time. I was on Christmas break with her. I worked for the school system, so I was able to spend 2 weeks with her. And she had gotten to the point that she was not able to physically bake. So she asked me if I would make the cakes for her. She loved to bake cakes.
Uh-huh.
And she wanted to show me how to make applesauce pancakes. And I remember her sitting at the table and she instructed me every step of the way. And of course, I had flour everywhere and all the ingredients everywhere. But anyway, we ended up making about 8 to 10 cakes.
Wow.
And afterward, we wrapped them up. And she said, I want to deliver them. So I
Mhm.
put her in the car and we drove around the neighborhood and delivered cakes to her neighbors and some of her friends. Even though she couldn't physically do it herself, she still had it in her heart. She wanted to give something to the neighbors.
Awesome. That is a beautiful, beautiful memory, Mama. And I'm wondering how those applesauce cakes tasted. Did Grandma Rachel approve?
Yes, she did. She did.
Good, good. Well,
It
thank
was
you for
sweet.
sharing that beautiful memory of my Grandma Rachel.
Yeah.
So next, I want to ask you. I guess I'm going to put myself on the spot here, but this is in service about you and motherhood. And so, what's the most embarrassing thing you ever did as a kid that you couldn't help but laugh at? That I
That,
did as a kid that you
that
couldn't
you
laugh
did.
at.
Okay, I can. Well, Allison, you were such a good kid, and I had to reach way back to try to find something funny. I mean, I don't know if it was embarrassing, but I remember when I worked in HR and I was in contact with all the elementary principals. And I don't know if you remember this, but your principal, Mr. Parker from Union Cross, called me one day.
Mhm.
And he said, Miss Harris, he said, I hate to do this. He said, but I had to call you because I had to call the other student's parent too.
Okay.
Said Allison got into some kind of disagreement with another student.
Uh-huh.
And it escalated to them starting to pull each other's hair. So he wanted to let me know that, and that I don't know what the punishment was. But anyway, so I'm thinking that's kind of funny because that wasn't your personality. So I don't know what caused you to get into some kind of confrontation with somebody. But I believe you're really good friends with this person now.
I do believe that I am really good friends with this person. I do remember that. I don't think she knew we were sharing this story, so I'm not going to reveal her name. But that is pretty funny and embarrassing because if you really know me, you know that is not my personality at
Right.
all. To be
And
confrontational
I
with
got another short one. I got another short one. You
okay.
you were in elementary school, second, third grade, and this was your first time wearing a training bra to school.
Oh, okay.
And you got home that afternoon and you pull it out of your book bag. And I said, like, Allison, you don't do that.
Yeah.
So we had our little talk. So I'm hoping you pulled it off in the bathroom and not in the classroom. So that was kind of funny to me, but
That's probably the most embarrassing thing I probably ever did for sure. For sure. Well, we're actually going to go ahead and jump into our questions in the interest of time. I just want to make sure we get to the
okay.
heart of our discussion. And so, folks, thank you again for tagging any friends, mothers, aunts, grandmothers, cousins, sister friends to join this conversation about generational resilience. And so, Mom, I want to start with, if you could share a little bit about your upbringing and the societal expectations surrounding women, marriage, motherhood, and career during your youth in the 60s, 70s, as you were a young lady.
Okay. Basically, like I said, I was born in 1956. So 10, 11, 12, 13 in the 60s. Came from a household of six brothers and sisters, plus my mom raising three other cousins. So not all at the same time, but basically nine children and mom and dad. So
Mhm.
mama and daddy both worked. Uh, it was just necessary because medium incomes. Mom was a housekeeper that she cleaned other people's houses, and daddy
Mhm.
worked at a lumber company and then a tire company. So it took both of their incomes to provide food, put a roof over our head, clothes on our back. But one thing I do remember after mama worked all day, she came home and she prepared a meal for the family.
Mm.
That was just a given. It wasn't not cooking because that's what they did. They made sure that the family had food to eat.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I remember because when I got married, her influence on me taking care of the family,
Mhm.
I just always felt like I needed to work and to work as soon as I could. And
Mhm.
also, one of the things that I remember most was that I wanted to have a skill that would bring in an income to help my family, financially.
Right.
So I went to school for 1 year in the secretarial field. That
Mhm.
was my career goal at that time. That's all I
Mhm.
could see is to perfect my skill And of course, back then in high school, we had typing, we had shorthand, we
Mm-hmm.
had dictation, transcription, those types of things that y'all probably don't even know.
Right.
But I wanted to perfect those skills to get a job. So, to go to school for a year and to start working. So I started working early on. Um,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
what was the other part of that question?
Yeah. Well, I think with that context, I think it's helpful. I always kind of share this with folks as I think, somewhat of a point of pride, given how long you and Daddy have been married. But what give folks some context? You went to high school.
We were high school sweethearts.
Yes.
And your dad was the dreamer. So your dad went off out west and ended up in Kansas. So he
Mm-hmm.
was in college. I graduated in June, and in
And when did you
July
get
1975,
married? Mm-hmm.
June 1975, in July 1975, we got married
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to go to school. I wanted to go to college where he went. And my
Yeah.
parents said that I could go.
Oh,
And they also said I could get married.
well, there it
So
is.
we decided to get married in July. A
Yeah.
week later, we started out with a $20 car that he had bought from his uncle.
Mm-hmm.
It had no back seat in it. And it wasn't because we took the seat out, it just didn't have a seat in the back.
Okay.
We had a we had a Foot Locker, a trunk with all of our worldly possessions in it. And
Uh-huh.
off to Kansas we went to start our life.
Uh-huh.
And went to school, and from there we relocated to North Carolina.
Got
And
it.
from there, 4.5, we were married 4.5 years before your brother was born. And
Yeah.
then four
Yeah.
and a half years later, you came along. So we really weren't young parents.
That is
But
fair. That's fair.
yeah, but you weren't young parents. We were able as a couple to have time with each other
Uh-huh.
without children for 4.5 years before we started. So when your brother came along, we were ready to have a family and ready to have the responsibilities.
Got it. Got it. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think even just that dynamic of leaving high school, graduating high school, and getting married within a month
Yeah.
of graduating high school and moving away from home certainly is just generationally, literally one generation away, how different that is. But as you mentioned, when you and Daddy decided to, begin to grow your family, you felt ready for that. And so
Mhm.
I'd love to hear just how did you navigate the responsibilities of motherhood? And, what support systems did you have, if at all, during that time?
Uh, when your brother was born, of course, we lived at least 5 to 6 hours away from family. So we didn't have family. They were in Virginia, we were in North Carolina.
Mhm,
So our church family, wherever we relocated to, we always made sure we had a church. And
mhm,
from the church comes a village. So we
yeah,
had the church family, we had neighbors, and we had good friends. So that,
mhm,
that was our village to help us with our children. And as you all grew, of course, when you got involved in sports and different activities, then we shared responsibilities as far as carpooling and taking each other kids to different places. Um,
mhm.
one of the other things was we made sure that we had good daycares for you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
your brother went to daycare when he was 3 months old. I got to
Mhm,
stay at home with you for 10 months.
mhm.
But the daycares were very important. And during the summertime, of course, that was YMCA, which you didn't like at all because it was an outdoor camp. Um, also, we had the before and after school program at school. I made sure that you all were supervised. Then, of course, during the summertime, you got to go to Virginia to spend 2 weeks with your grandparents.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how we navigated that.
I love it. I love it. Folks often say it takes a village to raise a child, and that I think, is exactly true. And, the village looks different, right? From when you were growing up. For folks who don't know, my mother and father, she mentioned they were high school sweethearts, but my two sides of the family literally lived about 5 miles from each other. And so my
Oh,
entire, family, extended family is in Amelia, Virginia. And so, for my mother and father, they grew up around tons of cousins and aunties and uncles and double cousins and all kinds of, so the village was all around them. And as you
mhm,
mentioned, Mama, we lived 5 or 6 hours away. And I would
mhm.
even say now, as, a mom of toddlers, where,
Yeah,
you all are only an hour away. And my mother-in-law and father-in-law and in-laws are about 2 hours away. The village that's closest to us, right? We have to create that and navigate
right,
that.
yeah,
And we live in a different world too, where, you just can't really trust everybody either.
yeah,
So it's very, very different, but it's good to hear that village and how you navigated that through a
yeah,
church family and through community engagement as well.
right,
I
right,
do want to ask you, kind of sticking with this idea of marriage and motherhood, as your daughter, and as I alluded to earlier, I chose to delay marriage and motherhood until later in life. And as I wrote that question and thought about it, it really truly was a choice. Like, I actually
mm,
was not thinking about marriage like until my early 30s. And then when my now husband and I were dating, I even told him, I was like, you should hold on asking me to marry you. You should just wait until I'm ready. And so I was very intentional about that. There were, quite honestly, things professionally that I was focused on. And so I'd love to hear just your thoughts on that particular decision. And how do you perceive the advantages and disadvantages of, starting a family at different stages of life versus, pursuing professional endeavors?
Well, Dr. Welcher, as you pursued your educational goals and dreams, I was real excited
Uh-huh.
from high school to college to graduate school, and so proud of you. But one of the things, I guess, when you start edging toward that 25, 26, 27, I think we became concerned that you didn't have a social life. But we knew you did. We knew you did, but no, nothing serious.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
anyway, I remember, I don't think she was your teacher, but she asked, how is Allison doing? And I said, Allison is seeking her degree. Allison is getting her education. She said, tell Allison those degrees won't keep her warm at night. But seriously, because you delayed, what I want to say too, when your family told me, you said, Mom, I have something to tell you. And you became a principal and you said, I have something else to tell you. And I said, what is that? You said, I have a boyfriend. And
Uh-huh.
I said, well, where has he been all our life? Where has he been? So, but I think delaying that, you fulfill your dream. You had a
Uh,
goal, and so that's an individual decision.
yeah, yeah.
I am thankful and blessed. You have a wonderful husband, and you've given
Hmm.
us two beautiful grandchildren.
Yes.
And the timing is perfect,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
so it's
Absolutely.
perfect.
Absolutely. Y'all gotta love mamas because mamas will just say it. She done told me she was worried that I didn't have a social life. And truth of the matter was, folks who maybe really, really know me, I am a very hard worker. I'm a very dedicated
Mhm.
person, and when I have a goal
Okay.
set, I am committed to that. And so, there was social life in parameters. But my eyes were on the prize on that particular thing. And so, but grateful for God's grace and God's plan.
Mhm.
I want to just ask you a little bit about, lessons learned and wisdom. And so, I think one of the beautiful aspects of our relationship, just really and truly as it's grown over the years, is the wisdom that you've passed down to me and the honest conversations we can have. And so in our mother-daughter relationship, my mom will certainly give me advice. I still kind of have a little bit of mom, I got it. Like, you don't have to tell me how to drive, or you don't have to remind me to pack certain things. But also we have the kind of relationship that, at times I share wisdom with my mom, things that I've learned as well. But Mom, I'd love for you to just, articulate, what were some of the most important or less important lessons or values that you wanted to instill in me as your daughter? And then how do you see those lessons reflected in my life today?
I would say, Allison, action speaks louder than words. And I'm hoping as you were growing up that you saw how me and your dad interacted with one another as
Yeah.
husband and wife and as a family person, and how we reared you all. Uh, One of the things that I always say, and I still say to you, is to love unconditionally, because people will get you in your feelings sometimes that you just want to throw them aside. But I always say love unconditionally is one of the things. And the other thing is spending quality time with your children,
Yeah.
giving them experiences. We tried, and I think we did pretty good at giving you and your brother experiences. We
Yeah.
didn't have a lot of TV watching.
Yeah.
We went on trips. We went to the park. We went to the library. We had books. We didn't have a lot of video games and all that type of stuff. So giving your children quality time and experiences. And one of the things I remember your grandpa Charlie used to always say is to help somebody, do something for somebody. So I'm hoping those types of things, and I can see it. I can see
Yeah.
that and more in you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, I appreciate that. It's good to hear your perspective. And I agree. Those things I definitely feel like were imparted upon me. And I think the way I would answer that question, there's two things that stand out. You've always said something like your family is your first ministry. And what I've understood that to mean is, even as a woman of faith and, helping others and being dedicated to the church, that God making me a mother created that as a ministry in and of itself. And so when I'm faced with hard decisions, or I feel overwhelmed or don't know what I should be doing, being reminded that, my family is my first ministry. And so that helps to kind of make things a little bit more clear. And that's something I think I've been a lesson that I've had tested, in recent years. I think another lesson is, the scripture, all things work together for those who love the Lord. And so, just understanding, whatever trials and tribulations, that I've gone through, that quote you just always say, like, it always works out. And so I love the lessons that you've shared and love the ones that I've held on to. And I think it's just made me a better and stronger woman for sure. So thank you, Mama. So want to begin to kind of ask you a little bit more about celebrating some shared experiences. And so despite the differences in our experiences, what are some of, the shared values? And you kind of named some of those, but what were some of the experiences that we have shared that you feel like have connected us even more as a mother and daughter?
well, besides sharing the children, and doing things with them, we've taken vacations together. We've had planned Thanksgiving together. The last one was really good, of course. And the most recent thing, Allison, has been you encouraging me to be healthy, me and your dad.
Yep.
So you not only encouraging us, you are on this journey with us.
Yeah.
You're so concerned about our health, not only for us, but that we won't be a burden to anybody else, and also that we can enjoy our grandchildren and soon to be great grandchild. So
Yeah. Yes.
we,
Yes.
me and your dad is in our third quarter going into our third quarter of our life, and
Yeah. Yeah.
health is so important. So we just thank you so much for being on that journey with us. I mean, that's priority.
Absolutely. And I think, it's something that, again, just learning, the more the more you do. And when you know better, you do better. And I think some of the things that we're learning around how to care for our bodies, in particular around the foods that we eat and movements, and things of that nature, I don't know if it were things that we just didn't know or just, conditions. But again, now that we know better, we can do better. And it is great to do that journey with you, because as we have, even Thanksgiving, we were having conversations around, all right, how are we going to navigate this celebration meal? We're in a program called E2M. And
Yeah.
our coach, Jeff, says it's one day out the year. You don't need to make it a whole weekend or a whole week of food celebration,
Right.
and so we're able to have that conversation as well. And so it's certainly, I feel like, hopefully a gift that I give to you all as
Yes.
well. And really this idea that you all can enjoy. Our boys are busy, they are busy, and they are
Yes.
just getting
Yes. You
started.
are.
And and so, I want you all to be able to run around and play with them and
Yeah.
enjoy them to the
Yes.
fullest extent. Sure.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, we're going to start to conclude our conversation and empowering Black and Brown moms to thrive in womanhood, motherhood, and career. And so you've shared just so much just around your experience and our shared experiences. But I'd love for you to share your final thoughts or words of encouragement for women who are seeking to thrive.
Well, I think one of the things is to believe in yourself. And when you set a goal, you may not, you may see the big picture and it may be overwhelming, but if you could take small steps toward that goal. And also, I would like to say, personality is good, but when you have a passion for something, a passion will keep you in the game where your personality may not take you as far. And as Black and brown women, we sometimes don't support each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we make it a seat at the table. And
Mm-hmm.
we need to invite somebody else to sit with us. Because
Yeah.
sometimes not being at the table may not be because you don't have the qualities, the
Mm-hmm.
skills, the degrees. It could be unfortunate that someone don't let you in to sit at
Mm-hmm.
the table by no
Yeah.
fault of your own.
Yeah.
So if you could reach back once you get to the table and invite
Mm-hmm.
another Black or brown woman there with you.
Yeah.
And I thank you, Dr. Welcher, for allowing me to sit at your table today.
Oh, thank you, Mama. I appreciate it. So beautiful. It has warmed my heart for you to be on this episode with me. I appreciate all the wisdom and advice that you shared and your vulnerability for sharing your story as well. I think there is just so much for women to learn from each generation. While things can be so different, there are some things that just remain the same. And so, Mom, thank you so much for your time, for this conversation with you. Women who are watching, I encourage you to have a conversation like this with your mother. Maybe there are some things that you want to understand better around the similarities and differences, but also the wisdom and lessons learned that your mother has imparted or hoped to impart upon you, and how she sees you doing in your role as a woman, as a daughter, perhaps a partner as well. So thank you, Mom. I'm going to pull you off the stage for a
Okay,
moment.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for watching this evening as we begin to wrap up our conversation. Again, just it's really eye-opening how much things have changed, and yet how much things remain the same. So, regardless of where you are in your journey, whether you're just starting out or you're deep in the thick of it of motherhood or being in partnership or in your career, know that there's really always room to grow. As my mother said, it's about setting a goal, taking small steps toward that goal. And there's always room to learn. And so if you are feeling stuck, and you're feeling lost and you're feeling like you could use a little bit of guidance, a part of this work that I do and a passion that I have, is coaching and developing other Black and Brown women who are working to navigate womanhood, motherhood, and career. And so I invite you to consider coaching with me. You can visit thrivelifecoaching.co, so that is .co, to schedule your complimentary consultation with me. It is a 20-minute conversation. We can get a sense of your needs. We can get a sense of if there are any coaching strategies that would be helpful for you. So really invite you to consider that. If you think you desire a little bit of extra support, again, I offer 3 services, including a 1-hour coaching session, a 3-session bundle, and then in the fall, we'll be offering an 8-week coaching transformation course. So really excited for the opportunity to meet and get to know you, as well as just coaching and supporting you in your goals. Thank you again for tuning in for Live with Thrive. And until next time, keep thriving.